let's turn to our Sunday morning news recap, starting off with Meet the Depressed.
Good Sunday morning. A battle is brewing on Capitol Hill with the government set to run out of money in just 6 days. It comes on the heels of a volatile week from Wall Street to Main Street, with confusion over President Trump's shifting tariff policy, more spending cuts, and uncertainty about the economy. The president and his allies have now begun to warn that some economic pain could be ahead for Americans.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much.
On Thursday, the president announced he was delaying 25% tariffs on many imports from Mexico and some from Canada for a month, with concerns mounting about the potential economic impacts of a wider trade war.
I'm not an expert in this stuff, but it strikes me that announcing tariffs, then delaying tariffs, isn't that going to create some volatility in the markets? I mean, isn't that a fair thing to expect?
Yeah, it already has.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing, though, that I do find a bit rich is that many of these Sunday show intros, which I took the liberty of watching for all you people, although I probably would have anyway, dwelled on this idea that the stock market went down because of the volatility engendered by this kind of haphazard tariff policy. And so I find it a bit annoying that when the stock market gets invoked as just like a method of concern trolling Trump or any other president. I mean, you could imagine theoretically like a left-wing president wanting to introduce some kind of like industrial policy that would create some intermittent disruption in the financial markets or on Wall Street, but that would be a necessary prerequisite for introducing the policy, and maybe the reaction being a little bit different. So I think there's some legitimate critiques, like what is the end goal of this tariff policy? Does Trump really want to annex Canada? Like, I don't understand like what the end goal is envisioned to be, really. So that's worthy of interrogation, but citing the stock market over and over, or just as this kind of petty means of bludgeoning Trump, I find a little bit dubious.
Fair enough.
After Target CEO warned consumers would likely see price increases over the next couple of days, and Best Buy's chief called price increases highly likely. Across the board, tariffs on two of America's three largest trading partners have been on and then off and then on and then off again, with a whiplash effect for businesses and consumers.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs? Is that it for those?
There'll always be changes and adjustments.
CEOs want to see predictability. They say, look, I have to speak with shareholders. I've got to make plans for CapEx spending. I can't if it's 20% one day and then it's off for a month and it's 25%.
Yeah.
So can you give us a sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
Well, I think so. But, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. And, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
so. That's not clarity.
No.
Top administration officials have started to hint some economic pain may be ahead.
There's going to be a short period of time where there'll be some higher prices on certain products. It's not inflation. That's nonsense.
Could we be seeing that this economy that we inherited starting to roll a bit? Sure. And look, there's going to be a natural adjustment as we move away from public spending to private spending.
Meanwhile, at the White House, frustration.
And what does he mean by moving from public spending to private spending? That part I don't understand.
Well, I mean, and also Lutnick's comment there that they clipped out is pretty funny. I guess I'm not enough of an economics genius to understand how prices going up is actually not inflation. Like, I thought that was kind of the definition of inflation, but they're saying essentially that the prices on certain goods are going to be going up for a just cause. So it's like necessary and worthwhile inflation, but they don't want to use the word inflation because it's politically incendiary. And then, yeah, I mean, transitioning to public versus private spending, but just basically means austerity. It just means mass privatization of public functions. And they're saying that in order to adapt to that, we have to brace for some short-term economic pain. So that's essentially what that means, I think.
Now, you followed the campaign pretty closely. Is it fair to say that Trump did campaign on tariffs? He did promise these tariffs?
Yeah, but not, as usual, in the most precise way that I think would hammer home what the immediate impact would be. He didn't, as far as I remember, ever campaign on launching a trade war against Canada.
No, he didn't. No.
Especially because he would, on the other hand, because, Trump will say a million things that contradict one another, and you can never really discern a consistent through line. But the trade war against Canada is especially odd because Trump had been touting that his first term achievement of this USMCA trade deal, basically a successor to NAFTA, was the greatest deal of all time. This is what Canadian officials have said to try to rebut Trump in his recent claims about why these tariffs are needed. We just got done negotiating what you said was going to be this brilliant world historical trade deal. So I don't know that the specifics were ever delineated. I mean, he's always kind of given indications that he believes that we should have free trade, but it's got to be fair trade, which is just a cliche, but does seem to presuppose that some tariffs and other kind of state interventionist methods in the economy are acceptable and even advisable in his judgment. So, but we know, but that I think people might have assumed that would be around China, or not necessarily, making it so that all of a sudden Kentucky bourbon distillers are going to have their products removed from the Canadian market as a result of Trump's economic policy. So I don't think that was ever spelled out.
I mean, I will say this: Sean Fain, the head of the UAW, the United Automobile Workers, he supports these tariffs. He thinks this is good for his workers. So the issue is, granted, it's a little complicated, but certainly, did Trump campaign on launching a trade war with Canada in order to annex it? Absolutely not. That's that's another curveball. Okay. Let's hear more from Meet the Depressed.
Nations growing behind the scenes amid reports of a contentious cabinet meeting where secretaries, including Secretaries Rubio and Duffy, clashed with billionaire Elon Musk. NBC News has confirmed the account first reported by the New York Times that some of the president's cabinet secretaries challenged Musk over his approach to cuts in their departments.
And details have come out about your cabinet meeting with Elon Musk and some clashes potentially between Secretary Rubio and Secretary Duffy.
No clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker. And you're not supposed to be asking that question because we're talking about the World Cup. Elon gets along great with Marco, and they're both doing a fantastic job. There is no clash.
Trump is only taking questions on the World Cup at this time. Do not ask him about the unelected billionaire who is taking an axe to the government and might even be clashing with other cabinet members in the process. Fair enough. I mean, if I was a cabinet member, would I want this obnoxious billionaire, mega billionaire coming in and just demanding my employees tell him what they did last week? So, I
always think billionaire is not the right word to describe Musk. Right. He's literally the richest person on earth.
So rich. Yeah.
Who's playing an incredibly outsized role in dictating government policy, and nobody even knows exactly what his position is. They claim that he's a special government employee, but it's kind of a strange carve out. He's apparently not subject to congressional oversight. There's no indication that he'll comply with any subpoenas or testify before Congress. So he's just operating in this netherworld of government power that I don't know a great parallel to historically. So yeah, I think inevitably that will create some potential clashes with other departments that are kind of more normal and duly constituted, like the State Department.
And great job, Democrats, not even winning the House or the Senate. So they don't even have subpoena power right now, even if they wanted to, even if they could, even if they wanted to.
But it would be customary probably for somebody of this amount of power to voluntarily appear before Congress. And I see very little indication that seems like a plausible thing for Musk to do, although who knows? He's pretty mercurial.
I certainly don't see the Republicans dragging Elon Musk before them, and that's unfortunate. That's really.
Oh, so I like the idea like Trump is just so interested in the World Cup that he's not going to entertain other questions on it. Like he's just such a big international soccer fan now that he wants to keep everybody focused on that issue.
Economy and concerns about high prices helped propel President Trump to the Oval Office, with Mr. Trump promising change.
From the day I take the oath of office, we will rapidly drive prices down and make America affordable again. We're going to get your energy prices down by 50%. Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again. A vote for Trump means your groceries will be cheaper. And we're going to have prices down. I think you're going to see some pretty drastic price reductions.
The dizzying policy shifts on tariffs and concerns about the health of.
Just an update on Trump's campaign pledges. That has not happened yet at all.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just like dumb campaign rhetoric. Like the president can wave a magic wand to make grocery prices go down. Obviously, that sounds appealing, especially if you're out of power and you can just saddle the incumbent administration with every economic ill. And there's a legitimate critique that could be made about the Biden administration's economic policy. But of course, Trump has this thing where he famously said, "I alone can fix it" in 2016. It was kind of taken a little bit out of context, but still, he does have this belief in his personal, almost like supernatural prowess to make everything great, and that runs up against reality. Again, though, just to underscore something, you mentioned Sean Fain of the United Auto Workers supports the tariff policy. I think that there's a reasonable point to be made that those people ought to be like the lodestars of whether this economic policy is good, as opposed to fluctuations on the financial markets, which is what all these shows are mostly concerned trolling Trump and his administration officials about.
Fair enough. I've learned something already today. I thought I put way too much faith in the markets, and I'll never be following them ever again.
Well, we know you're a Wall Street titan.
Oh yes,
investor.
Yes. I love what's his name, Milton Friedman. He's my lodestar.
I like the Laffer curve, Art Laffer.
The economy produced one of the worst weeks on Wall Street in months.
And worst week on Wall Street in months is still like virtually record high market levels. Historic highs, but it's just down for like 2% from last November or something.
Yes.
So
a lot
again,
of
it's concern trollish.